After induction to the site, our first shot is the boundary peg showing lots 19 and the road sides. And the panning shot shows a timber retaining wall to the west and south of the site. And there's a digger in action. It's excavating for the foundations. And what the driver's doing at this moment is changing the bucket. Materials have been stacked in the northwest corner of the site. There's metal base course and timber for temporary works. And reinforcing steel. But back to the digger. Having broken up the ground with one bucket, he's now removing the spoil with a larger bucket. A container is used as a site office, and the construction site notice includes the day's hazards. There's connections to temporary power and water. Topsoil has been removed from the area of the building, profile boards and string lines erected, and some excavation for ground beams and thickening of the slab. This is a moderately sloping site, and some of the profile boards are high, requiring additional support. A silt fence has been dug on the lower part of the site, filled with gravel, and has plastic sheeting held up by waratahs. This timber retaining wall with round piles have been constructed on the west and south sides of the building area, and there's some reinforcing cages for future work. This is further views of the boxing being constructed, held in place by pegs. The laser level and tripod is used to establish dimensions accurately. And our last shot on this visit is the digger preparing the stepped footing of the foundations. The garage floor slab is poured on a previous day and hard enough to be used as storage. You can see saw cuts in the slab to control shrinkage. And boxing has been removed on one edge where the block layers have already started. Note the reinforcing to the block work. This shot is the foundation footing with the DBC in place and reinforcing bars tied in place. The footing will be stepped down the slope, hence the timber retaining pieces. Here's the tool for bending the rim. And a concrete truck has arrived. And this is just a small pour for the footing. Not even any need for a vibrator, as very little consolidation is required. Footing is simply the connection between the wall and the ground. Block laying of the lower story has been completed. More timber has been delivered to the site, and the maroon colour indicates boric treated timber. These will be used as floor joists. Part of the lower level will have a concrete floor slab. Before anything else, waste pipes from the sanitary fittings have to be put in place. These two parallel pipes are to provide ventilation to the lower storey, as there won't be any vents on the north side of the building. This is just a general shot of the garage floor and the basement block walls. The block wall on the west side has been coated with an emulsion, brushed into the blockwork joints and rolled on the surface to ensure coverage. This shot shows the timber bearer in position, supported on timber piles and a timber block at the end. Here's the emulsion used for waterproofing. Back to the bearer. This shot shows the piles and the polythene damp-proof course, and a close-up of the supporting block. This detail is not included in 3604, but it's similar to the fixing of a stringer. This view of the venting pipes and the top of the block wall shows the reinforcement and the concrete filling of the blocks. The sides of the top course of blocks have been knocked off. This shows one of the string lines and the accuracy to which the block layers need to work. Here a flexible sheet material is being applied to the west wall foundation. It's a self-adhesive impervious membrane. It has a self-adhesive edge for joining to the next sheet. And here you can see the tape has been applied over the joint between the footing and the block wall. It's an early start on the site today for the pouring of a floor slab. Here we can see the damp-proof membrane and the reinforcing placed, and there's extra reinforcing at the perimeter. You can also see the tying of the steel. The concrete truck arrives and it'll be positioned next to the pumping truck. Here the operator is checking the extent of the burn. Pumping begins. Wet concrete is heavy, as can be seen by the effort required by the boom operator to direct the flow. The perimeter is filled first in 2 passes. Here's the first pass. And a petrol-driven vibrator is used to consolidate the wet concrete. During the process, the workers have to stand on the reinforcing. The support chairs need to be frequent enough to withstand these temporary point loads. Here the boom operator is working around the perimeter with the second pass before starting to fill in the main part of the slab. As soon as practicable, another team member starts to float off around the perimeter. The flow of the concrete is controlled from the truck, so the boom operator has to continually move the outlet to ensure an even placement of the concrete. While working in wet concrete, the team leave foot impressions. You'll see as the large screed is used that the worker has to ensure these impressions are filled. Using the screed, it requires a method of working backwards to avoid leaving further impressions. Obtaining a level surface while working only from the floated perimeter takes skill. The next step is to make careful passes with a large float. There's over 11 cubic metres in this slab, more than what can be supplied from one truck. Here's the second truck arriving, and the sun's just coming up. More attention is paid to the perimeter of the slab. The operator needs to signal to the truck operator where he wants the boom. Here you can see the teams working on a slab, each with their assigned task. The mix has to be floated around in the penetration. In the background, the screed is used to provide a guide area. Now you can see why. perimeter and the guide area are used to get the slab level. These shots show that most of the slab has been screeded and floated off. The unfinished part is because 2 truck loads have been used and more is needed. However, the pumping truck is no longer required and the 3rd truck is able to deliver the mix directly to where it's required. Getting an even distribution of the mix is more difficult when it is not pumped. With enough mix for the slab, the truck is repositioned to supply concrete to another part of the site. The excess mix is simply pulled over the edge of the boxing. It takes experience to know how much is required to complete the slab. As the screed is used as a shot of how much water has risen to the surface of the previously worked concrete. This is all that's required initially for the slab. And we'll now look at other parts of the site. This is the particle board flooring to be laid on timber joists, and here's the joists. The colour indicates the treatment. Back to the slab. After a short period of time, water rises to the surface of the slab. It's now 11 o'clock and there's only one of the team left on the site. And his job is to use the power float, sometimes referred to as a Kelly float. There's a fair amount of care taken to finish the slab edges by hand, as this is not reached by the power float. At this point the slab's hard enough to stand on, but the surface is still soft. flour float is used to bring the cement to the surface and provide a smooth finish. As the surface dries, the flour float will provide an increasingly smoother finish. There are still a number of passes required for this slab. There's been heavy rain earlier in the day. The building team are at another site, and even though the weather is cleared, there's no one on the site. The area to the west of the building has been backfilled up to the level of the timber wall, and particle board flooring has been laid, and there's more timber. Here we're looking at the lower floor concrete floor slab. The boxing's been removed, and the damp-proof membrane can be seen turned up from under the slab. With the heavy rain, water has ponded on the particle board flooring. Although it's dried here, the stain is obvious. This small section of the edge of the floor is yet to be completed. The grey subfloor polystyrene insulation slab can be seen, and this shows glued and screwed joints. Here the pre-cut frames with their plastic wrap have been stacked on the edge of the site, where the delivery truck would be able to place them. Note the dunnage, pieces of timber that the frames are placed on to keep them off the ground. Each part of the load is labelled. These frames on top are open web joists and are a different grade of timber. Every frame is numbered. This top load is the external wall frames already assembled with the damp-proof membrane. And this shot is of the garage floor. There's some ponding of water on the surface. And this is just a general view of the subfloor area.